introduce ourselves before we bring everybody else back. There we go. Sorry about that. That is my incompetence in clicking the buttons. So we should be online now. I was focusing on the people that were here, so that's the good indication that you should come along and join the meeting rather than just being a voyeur and watching on the internet. So my name's Martin Hinchelwood. I'm a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org. We're going to be talking today about definition of done, and I have an awesome person to help me out. Anna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Anna. I'm in Spain. I'm located in Spain, and I'm a professional Scrum Master. And yeah, today I'm helping just a little bit for this time, Martin, with this workshop, and let's see where this takes us.
Yeah, let's see how far we get. It's going to be fun. So I'm gonna close the rooms. They've had enough time. I don't think everybody's answered all the questions, but they've been having some good discussions in there. I don't think I created an answer deck for this one. So I'm just having a look and seeing how people answered.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hi. Oh, there we go. Everybody's back in the main room. Awesome. How did you get on? Were they quite difficult questions? No, Anna too is shaking her head like, no, those were easy. Okay.
I think we got stuck on one, but it was good.
Yeah, it's I think definition of done is something that is often misunderstood and often confused or conflated with acceptance criteria. Victoria, I just popped you on mute there. There was some background noise popping in. Just a note that everybody has permission to pop other people on mute. So if you do hear a lot of background noise, it's okay to go mute that person. But if you just don't like what they're saying, it's not okay to go put them on mute. Okay, that's not a good reason to put them on mute.
We're not allowed to mute you.
You can if you want. You can if you want, and Anna can take over then.
I'll try to.
So were there any contentious discussions in your room? I got a couple of things that I want to hit on because there's like 50-50 between the rooms.
I think number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah.
We don't have to conform to any standards. We don't like standards. What's this? Get these standards off me. That's. I think standards are something that should be built into any process for everything we're doing, right? Too many standards might end up being bureaucracy. So you need to be careful of that balance. But having standards is a good idea. Definition of done is one of those standards that we should have that is a good idea. Does anybody know what the Scrum Guide says about definition of done and where it comes from? 8, I know you do.
I think it's a responsibility of increment. Oh, sorry. What is it again?
So I've got a little phrase here. I'm just going to bring it in. It's straight off. Oh, well, I put it on a post-it. That's probably not the best place to put it. I should have put it on a text box. Let me change that to a text box, and then I can make the text bigger. There we go. Well, except I paused that up. Is that... Where did that go? It magically disappeared. I will get a new one. Let me make it bigger. There we go. I've just put it off to the bottom of our startup, and it says, if the definition of done for an increment is part of the standards of the organization, all Scrum teams must follow it as a minimum. So that for me implies two things. It implies that your organization should have some kind of standard for what your definition of done is. And it also implies that the team, the Scrum team, can add more things than the minimum requirement. Right? So if you think about definition of done should be applied equally across your entire organization. So there might be things that you don't put on that list because you can't apply them across everything. And then each team, depending on what they're building, are going to have individual things they have to add. I'm thinking of an example, and I think a good one is, let's say you're an organization who makes printers, but also makes pacemakers, right? The pacemakers need to comply with a bunch of regulations that printers do not. Right? The somebody has to, I guess, medical within your country, there'll be some medical body that imposes restrictions upon you.
There is an ISO standard. I can't remember the number, but it's about 15.
There'll be an ISO standard for that, absolutely. And there are a lot of ISO standards. Which ones apply to your organization? There might be standards around financial information. One that I've had to combat with a number of times is, no matter where you are in the world, if you build software that somebody in an organization that's listed on the New York Stock Exchange makes a financial decision based on information you present them, your software must comply with SOX audit, Sarbanes-Oxley, which is an absolute nightmare, but you have to provide that data, that information, that ability to see what's going on. It's about traceability of who made the decision and what the data showed them in order to have that traceability in case something's wrong, right? So that might be imposed upon us. We have no choice. If we want to build software in a particular market, we have to comply with standards. So it's okay for those things to be imposed from the outside because they might just be reality. Another one I noticed that we had a little bit of two teams put a red, put a cross, and two teams put a tick. And that was all technical debt is a risk to the business. That's a phrase I've used before. I kind of snuck that one in there.
Is all technical debt a risk, or is not paying it off a risk?
It's not paying it off continues the risk, right? So if you have money on your credit card that you've not paid off yet, it is a risk. Even if you have the money to pay it off at the end of the month, something might happen that makes it dangerous, right? So it is a risk. All debt is a risk. I have a mortgage on my house, right? If I can't pay that mortgage each month, I lose my house, don't I? So there's risk there, and that debt is secured against my house. So I'm not going to lose money. I'm going to get the money back that I put into the house. But what is the technical debt in your product secured against? Who insures the technical debt in your product? Nobody does. It's completely unsecured risk. That's a business risk, isn't it? If you have unsecured risk, that's a big risk to the business. The problem is the business doesn't understand that risk. So they don't know it's there because, we don't tell them. We don't have that conversation with them about, well, you know, I know you spent 100,000 on this product, but actually, you know, we didn't run all of the tests every sprint. So, you know, there's some features in there that, you know, maybe they work. We don't know. Maybe they don't. What risk is that to the business? Yeah. It depends how you think about the question, doesn't it?
I'm just triggered by the whole technical, because sometimes
Yep.
not getting technical debt is a huge risk as well if you cannot ship and you.
So,
And that's what I'm saying. Paying it off, as long as you highlight that you have technical debt and plan to fix it next sprint, the risk of not doing
reduces.
might be
Yeah,
bigger.
yeah, yes, but it only reduces the risk. It doesn't make it zero risk. The fact that it exists is risk. Your business might have decided to accept a certain level of risk in order to meet the time constraints of shipping in a market. Right? We've got to get something, or our competitors have done something. We must be able to meet that constraint. We can't have our usual level of quality because there's not enough time and we have to get it out there. Otherwise, we're out of business. We're hemorrhaging customers. Right? So you might reduce quality to meet that. There's technical debt, but we have to pay it back. It's still risk. That I think is what I'm getting at. It might be acceptable risk, but it still needs to be quantifiable as risk. And
we did a short debate on this in my meeting room that basically said everything we've ever done has always gone live with some level of technical risk. You know, a perfect piece of software does not exist. You know, no matter how, even for pacemakers, you know, there will be not necessarily technical debt. I think there will probably be no technical debt there because someone will have fixed the problem. What they've got is a much worse scenario, which is they have probably got bugs in there they don't know about. Where actually going live with bugs you do know about and someone accepting that and then deciding when, if at all, to pay that off is a I would suggest a better view of the world. You know, because you may deprecate that bit of the product before you need to pay the debt off. So why do that? Why not invest the fix money in the make a better product money?
yes, absolutely, and I agree. Except under certain circumstances. What level of risk would you be happy with, Peter, for Boeing in their products they create? Right? What if you were the one with the pacemaker, what level of risk would you be willing to accept? So the way it tends to work is there is that level of risk. There is that reality of cost versus benefit. And as long as you and your team have done everything within your power to minimize any risk to the level that's allowed, then you've done a good job, right? There always might be the circumstance that a plane will fall out the sky, right? That we can't have that zero. It's not zero. It is something. The example I usually use for that, Peter, is the Food and Drug Authority in the US stipulates exactly how many insect legs are allowed per, I don't know what per quantity, maybe per ounce of food that you buy in the supermarket. How many insect legs are allowed? Because zero is impossible, right? Because insects are everywhere. You can't have zero. So you have to specify, and I think it's 2 parts per million, or it's three legs per kilo of food, or whatever it is. There is a standard for that has been defined as an acceptable level of risk. But
possibly another good example is airbags, because I actually heard the guy who invented airbags going on and saying airbags, American airbags, need to be able to stop a 200-pound linebacker, whatever the hell one of those is. But the risk is they will kill little old men. And at the time he was saying this, he was about 70 something, 80 something.
Yep.
And he was the little old man who might well get killed.
Yes.
He just said it's just an acceptable level of risk. We just agree that some people are not going to come off as well as they ought to if their airbag goes off, because we have to stop big people.
So maybe a different way of doing that would be to weigh the person that's in the seat and calibrate the airbag based on the weight. And they do that to a certain extent. For example, if I put a baby seat in my passenger seat of my car, the airbag will not deploy because they are not heavy enough to trigger the airbag deployment level, right? So they do all sorts of things to mitigate that risk. They do what they can, but there's a certain point at which they can't do anymore. So I think we need to we need to introduce a little discussion about the difference between acceptance criteria and definition of done. I know some of you are veterans of that conversation. Okay, I'm looking at you, Ov. You're definitely a veteran of that conversation. But it is something that both Anna and I encounter all the time in organizations, which is a lot of confusion. What's our definition of done for this backlog item? Right? It's something that I hear quite often in organizations. Has anybody heard that? I have. Ov's nodding. Yeah. Peter, have you not heard that ever?
No.
No. It's getting more and more common.
Definition of done is universal. I've heard what is applicable within the definition of done for this backlog item. That debate I've heard. And what does all documentation up to date mean?
Yep.
But no one's argued a toss about whether there is a different definition of done.
Well, we are going to have a little exercise around this, and we're going to introduce a hypothetical organization and product, right? And we're going completely non-technical on this one. We've got a bakery, and in our bakery, we make some products. We actually make 2 products in our bakery. This is a startup, so we only have 2 products at the moment. One of which is baguettes, and the other one is banana bread. Because I don't know, I think Anna likes banana bread. That's why we've got banana. Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So acceptance criteria are the part of the business requirements for the thing that's on your backlog. So if you were thinking about it in the perspective of user stories, right? You've got user stories and acceptance criteria. And the acceptance criteria is really the conversation. You have a story, you talk about the story, you have a conversation, you record the things, the business things that you've been talking about around that conversation, right? As you're discussing that backlog item. So yes, you do have unique acceptance criteria for each backlog item. And the acceptance criteria for one backlog item might look nothing like the other backlog item. But Peter is right. Definition of done applies to everything equally. Okay, it should apply to every single thing on your backlog, should be able to meet the definition of done. But again, you might have to, is documented. You might have to have a conversation on each definition of done, like what does that mean within the context of that item. So what I have here is I have a number of things here. Let's see, how many people do we have? We have 16 people. 16 people into groups of 3 goes how many times? Somebody who's good at math needs to help me out.
5.
But thank you very much for that.
5-ish.
5-ish.
1 person. person a minute.
Yeah, my math just sucks really badly. So I'll do 5 rooms. I'm okay with the and a bit. Of you can go half in one room and half in the other room, or is it 25% in each room? Something like that. There we go. We've got 4, and then 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So that works. Oh, but in fact, I need to go find Anna. Would you like to go into a room, Anna, with the group?
Yeah.
Aye.
That would be nice.
Well, that will solve that problem. So what I'd like you to do is a little card sort. In each room, I'll summon everybody so we're all looking at the same thing. There we go. In each room, we have baguettes, banana bread, and done. There are cards that are to do with baguettes, cards that are to do with banana bread, and cards that are to do with done. So hopefully in your room you've got somebody who's ever baked something, right? Because we have a list of ingredients that might be part of each of these items, and I felt it was fairly obvious which ingredients go in banana bread and which ingredients go in baguettes. But that could be an assumption because I bake. My grandmother taught me to bake. So we have lots of different things, and how much of each thing you would put in each type of product. I think if you think logically, we've got a savoury bread and we've got cake, right?
Yeah.
We should be able to figure out which things go where. But then there are some things that should apply to absolutely everything. So again, go to the room that matches your the room that matches your room number when you get into your group. Okay, so I've clicked open. So I'll give you 5 minutes to sort these. So just do a quick sort, and let's see if we manage to get them in the right place. Okay, I sent everybody off. I know you guys are still here watching me. So for you, there are should be fairly obvious which things go in which category. If I zoom in a little bit, I'm going to release everybody so I can zoom in. There we go. So there are a couple of things. Where are the things that are kitchen was clean at time of preparation, right? That's definitely done. And all ingredients used were fresh, right? That's done. But then, you know, we've got things that banana bread uses plain flour. Baguettes use bleached flour, so white flour, right? Banana bread doesn't rise like bread does. Bread needs yeast, so you put yeast in bread. But banana bread, you'll probably put some bicarbonate of soda. You're going to put sweet things in there. So the buttermilk, you can see in room 5, they've got the buttermilk in there. And yeah, so I can't remember whether actually it's 3 grams of salt for banana bread or 10 grams of salt, but they've decided it's 10 for baguettes and 3.5 for banana bread. I think that makes sense. We're going to use eggs in banana bread, but we don't put eggs in baguettes, right? We use butter in cake, and castor sugar. Yes, there's more things in, definitely more things in banana bread than there are in... I'm experimenting with my camera, in case you were wondering why it's doing that Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons flicker. I have a little tool installed in OBS that changes the camera based on where I'm looking. So if I look for long enough at this camera over here, it's going to switch to that camera. And then when I look over here, it's going to switch back. I'm still working and tweaking how that works and the sensitivity of it, but it does seem to be, it seems to be working, right? So basically it's detecting my face. So we'll see how that works. Let's see what we've got. We are gonna bring them back in just a moment. If you're on the Teams team for making breakout rooms, I'd like a little timer for how long the rooms have been open on each of the rooms. Maybe that would be handy, so I can see, because I can see room 3 is done, Room 1's done. Ah, yeah, there's 5 rooms, so room 6 isn't. Yeah, see, there we go. It did the switch, but it went dun, 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 like Captain Scarlet and the Mistrons. Maybe I'm too old. But if I look here, it switches back once. I don't get why it does that. I'll need to check the settings and figure it out. So I think it's about time to bring everybody back. It is... oh, Narissa's following me. Let me unfollow Narissa. And then over here, let me remove that. I have an answers grid. Baguettes take more salt, 10 grams of salt, yeast, olive oil, water, and strong white flour. There we go. That was what was on there. So it's 4, 2, and like 9. So it looks like most people are getting there. Room 3 is not sure. What's room 3? They're putting all the salt in baguettes. But they've got the yeast, the flour, cool olive oil. So they're not putting any salt in the banana bread, is what they're doing. So that's okay. Well, let's close the rooms. That is pretty good. Click close. They get a little warning, and then they'll pop back in just a second. Got to get a timer on. Doing that a lot recently, but just guessing. So we'll see. Oh,
Hello.
I need to make this harder. Oh, almost every team got it perfect. What did you think, Anna?
Just moving the cards, and there were some. I saw kind of a pattern. They were just thinking about what does apply to both, but not in terms of standards.
Right. Yeah, that's a good caveat, and I can see that's happened in room 4. So in room that was the room you were in, and in room 4 we're gonna put 370 milliliters of water in both banana bread and baguettes. I'll tell you now, that will not work. That will not have the outcome you're expecting. You'll have a banana bread drink at that level of water. And we don't put eggs in baguettes. We don't put eggs in bread. So that's I have uncovered a little answer grid over on the right hand side. But the only other thing I noticed was that room 3 wants to put all the salt in baguettes, which will definitely work. But you need a little bit of salt in banana bread. Let me check my answer grid as to which of which. 3.5 grams of salt in banana bread and 10 grams of salt in baguettes. So those that did it fast figured out what were the done items really quickly. There are only 2 done items on our list. One is all ingredients are fresh, right? That applies equally to baguettes and banana bread. And the other one is kitchen was clean at the time of preparation, which is probably an externally imposed standard, right? That we need to have. At least I hope it is, depending on where you are in the world, right?
And Martin, I would say not only that, but if we add any other product backlog item to that, even if it doesn't use salt or whatever, also that it's going to apply. So
yeah, I think that kitchen clean at time of preparation, I would like that apply to anybody making any product that I put in my mouth. Right? Regardless of whether they're a bakery or anything else. I'm not sure it does, but I would like it to.
I think my wife would impose a kitchen clean at end of preparation as an additional condition.
Yes. Is that a condition of you being allowed to cook again, Peter?
I'm actually normally the one that does the tidying up, actually.
Yeah, I like to have everything clean and finished at the end of that as well, right? So determining which things are which are really really important. So I think where are we? I think we should do the what don't we know exercise. So I'm gonna recreate again so we don't end up with the same people. That way, if you end up with somebody you don't like, you'll be with somebody else next time. There we go. So I rejigged the rooms. Let me do that. There we go. And I have a little fast pass to see. Oh, forget the little round 1, round 2 stuff at the top. That's left over from Anna and I building these exercises earlier. Well, yesterday, day before yesterday. I can't remember when we did it. But I'll look at those three statements and see if you can't come up with an answer for each one. So what's the difference between acceptance criteria and done? Right, so I'm hoping you'll be able to answer that now. Can it be done without meeting the acceptance criteria? Is the second question. That might be a little bit more contentious. And then how does definition of done serve transparency? Okay, so I'm going to click to open the rooms. See if you can't add a little post-it to the board answering each of those questions. And I'll probably ask 3 people when we get back what they think. We don't have time to ask everybody, but we can get a few people.
Okay.
Yeah, I kept you here this time.
Yeah, okay. It was nice being in the breakout room.
I like interacting with folks as well, but it's funny, especially in 124 all is always a nightmare for breakout rooms because you've got 2 minutes to reorganize everybody into the new rooms so that when you hit go.
Yeah, and people coming back and saying what is happening and then sending them. Yeah.
Yeah, that part's not fun. So I turn off their ability to come back when I'm doing breakout rooms, so I don't allow them to do that. And what's the other thing that helps with that? Oh, I'll put a timer on. Let's put a timer on for 6 minutes. There we go. We've got a good group, good mix. It's definitely
Yes.
a topic people are interested in. Oh, Lewis has disappeared.
Yeah, he said he had to leave.
That's cool. He's just popping in. Lewis is a PST
Okay.
as well. So he was coming in to see what's going on.
Going on here.
Yeah. What are these idiots up to?
Yeah, I was seeing in the breakout rooms that the way that they were trying to organize the difference between acceptance criteria and the definition of done. They were trying to find the common aspects, but not the standards.
Yeah, I think that's dysfunctional in the way I explained it at the start. I think I maybe.
Not really, because the other teams understood it. Maybe it's based on experience. It
Yeah.
was just one. So maybe they were basing their decisions on experience.
Yeah. And I do find that confusion between acceptance criteria and done is so common. So common. So when I see they're starting to answer things. On the concrete practices section, I don't know if you noticed, I added some pictures of pies.
Yeah.
So we're adding some meat products to our so that meat products come with additional definition of done stuff. Like you might start thinking about what temperature the inside of things get to, which can also equally apply to the baked goods, but is more important for the meat goods. That's what I was getting to with that one. So that introduced that as a. Would you like to introduce that as a change in the corporate or companies?
I prefer if you do it yourself because you know it better,
Okay.
and it's for me. So I don't want to make them understand something that it's not. So
I don't
we,
think there's any danger of that.
I will I will do more next time.
Okay. That's cool. First time through. So then they're going to go into a 1, 2, 4 all to come up with additional things. I'm actually I've left. That should be covered. I just covered it. That was my answers grid. So just they now we've introduced meat. Are they going to think of the additional things that we put on there? And then did you see I brought in some examples of definition of done? Other software ones, but I just copied them out of the APS SD, the software delivery one from Richard Hunthausen's book, which is awesome. And they're just from various Microsoft test products. So that should be good. We're doing pretty good on
Time, right?
time. Yeah, we're doing unusually good on time, which is good because we have the workshop to explain as well. So I am actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull in a copy of your workshop, which I didn't do. That's my mistake. And then we can talk about it here, but then they've got the link for it in the I can't remember where I put it. Oh no, you put it in the
I added in
the community. So if you're watching online, you can just go find that definition of done tune-up workshop from Anna in. Let me get a copy of that. There we go. It's just a community portal, so it's community.nkdagility.com. Let me create a mural from the template. She's given us a lovely template. It's very pretty as well. It's got the purple. We like the purple. That's
I use your purple.
I am very predictable in the color choice that I use. Let me make this a bit bigger and then paste it in there. I did another copy of it that was actually a lot bigger. More like probably that big, something like that. It's good for zooming in. If you have to zoom in to see cards and things, I try and make it as big as possible.
Yeah. So I did this workshop last week with with 3 teams, and the part I liked the most, we will talk about it later, but the one that we liked the most was the imagine that, how the definition of done could have helped you if you had it like in your daily work.
Yeah, that definitely I quite liked. I like that exercise as well.
Okay, so I believe that time is up.
I have clicked to close the breakout rooms.
Okay.
There's a 10-second warning in Teams, remember? So they come back. Okay, let's see. I did see we had a couple of people drop out, so some folks ended up in a room with 2, but at least it was a room of 2 and not a room of 1. I was trying to make sure that we don't have a room of 1. So I saw Lewis dropped off. Kate, what was your outcome that you thought of between the 3 questions? What were your insights?
So I think we were fairly clear on number 1, but I think number 2 was, can it acceptance criteria are more of a kind of a business requirement. So actually, as you move through development and you learn more things, then actually those acceptance criteria could change. So,
Yep.
or certainly that's the case as I've seen. So, you know, in some instances, if they don't, then I guess you wouldn't meet your definition of done. But
I guess maybe it depends if you have must meet acceptance criteria on your definition of done.
true.
Right. I do tend to recommend against that, but we'll hear from a couple of other people first. Let's see who was in 2. Andre, you were in room 2, weren't you? You should be up.
What's sorry?
Go.
Yeah, so for the first one is quite sure. Yeah, a certain criteria is specific for backlog item and then applies all. For so, yeah, we are cool with that. And the interesting part is the second. This is depends. It depends. So if the definition of done is referencing to the acceptance criteria, so acceptance criteria need to be as part of the definition of done. So if it's considered done, then the acceptance criteria it should be met. But if not, so no. So it's depend.
Okay.
And the third one is yeah, it's assist by not letting you hide the incomplete work.
I like the way you phrased that, not letting you hide incomplete work. I like the way you phrased that. That's a good way to do that. I think let's hear from one more. Max,
Yes, sir.
what did your group discuss?
I was trying to write it down. Victoria had a little. Victoria and Lisa had a better understanding of it. Can be done without meeting the acceptance criteria. So, I think I might have to rely on Victoria because I think she explained it pretty well.
So what happened to us? Yeah, we were having a discussion of what happens when the acceptance criteria is not clear. I think Victoria was telling us that she had like experiences with the developers thinking of something is ready to go, accepted, but then the product owner saying no, but this is I shouldn't accept it because it doesn't match the acceptance criteria. So I think from her experience there were some misunderstandings, or like maybe like the question would be how can we make this more clear, or how do you do an acceptance criteria that it doesn't create misunderstandings? So.
That's correct, Lisa. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely an interesting conundrum because the acceptance criteria is part of your scope, right? That's a scope problem. Do we as a team commit to scope in a sprint? Is that a good idea? We don't commit to scope, Peter. We commit to a goal, right? Which means we may have to do some things to get there, but we don't commit to individual backlog items, and we don't commit to things that need to happen for those backlog items. So having acceptance criteria on our definition of done might lock us into a scope that we maybe can't achieve. We're not focused on scope with done. We're focused on quality. We can deliver an awesome quality product that does not do what the customer asked for. I agree, right? But at least we've met the quality bar. If I deliver a baguette that does not have, let's say I deliver a baguette that's a circle instead of straight lines, right? Using exactly the same ingredients, but it ends up being a hoop, right? It is still meets our definition of done. Kitchen, clean it, time of preparation. And even if we had a taste test, it's going to taste the same. So it is the same thing. It's just not in a format that our customers might find visually appealing or within the bounds of their expectation. Which still might be a problem, but they're not going to get sick and die. Right? I mean, that's ultimately what our definition of done is to protect from. Sick and die is obviously an extreme version, right? Whether you're building planes or pacemakers or food. But even how do your stakeholders know what they're looking at a sprint review? You need to have some kind of agreement, working agreement on what does the quality bar, minimum quality bar that your customers will accept look like? Otherwise, we could not do some of those quality aspects, still deliver what the customer asked for, and we've potentially hidden some technical debt, even if we didn't do it intentionally.
But sorry, on your example, like how's the acceptance criteria useful if you're not using it?
You are absolutely using it, right? But the sprint backlog is a guide towards the sprint goal. The sprint goal is the thing you're trying to achieve, right? Whether you do 4 of the acceptance criteria or 3 might not make any difference to your ability to meet the sprint goal and to deliver the customers something that adds value to their product, to their lives, to their efficiency, whatever those things are that you're trying to achieve. Yeah. Because we need that flexibility, because we don't know how long things are going to take, and things never take the same amount of time than you think they are. So that variance is part of that thing we have to accept, but we cannot accept lower quality because it's too easy to hide it. Right? I think there's the quality standards are so important. There's a whole area in the UK currently. I think Jill, I think you mentioned it before, but they're currently having to boil their water because there's E. coli in the water supply. Right? Does that meet your standard and expectation as a customer? Absolutely not. Right? You do not expect that to be true.
Yeah, I think you are right here, Martin. I think I would like to say one thing. So again, your DoD is again based on your like team development team and the agreement between the development team and the product owner. So in DoD, you can consider like if you are like kind of don't want to make it like what very extreme level of DoD. So you can say, okay, out of three out of 4, maybe acceptance criteria could be considered for DoD. But if you want to make it stringent, then you can say, no, we have to consider 4 acceptance criteria out of 4. So this is something
that might be a negotiation that we have with the product owner, right?
Yeah.
That might be just a thing that we have a chat about because we don't think we can do them all. Let's go to the product owner. Is this okay if we don't have everything and we can do something else later? That scope is always negotiable in Scrum. So what is on your sprint backlog, including the acceptance criteria, is all negotiable. So we don't commit to any of it. So that's why having it on your definition of done might not be such a good idea. Although it's very common. I do see a lot of teams put meets acceptance criteria or approved by the product owner on their definition of done. But those things will inhibit your ability to be flexible. Victoria, I'm just gonna mute you again, just the background noise. Jinlong, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned the commitment for developers to achieve the sprint goal.
Yep.
I remember there's something like their commitment is also to achieve like increment, something like that.
Yeah. So the Scrum Guide, it has some weird phrasing around that. It basically says that your increment is born when your product meets the definition of done. That's effectively, you have an increment when it meets the definition of done. If your product doesn't meet the definition of done, you've not met the quality level for it to be releasable, right? Regardless of how many features you manage to deliver in it, the scope. But if you met the definition of done, then it's in a releasable state. If we're talking about software, or even other things as well. If I was writing a book with some colleagues, you know, Julong, you, I, Peter, and Anna are all going to write we're going to write a book. We're going to collaborate on this book about Agile, right? We can write various levels of detail on our content for the different chapters that we work on, but if it is poorly written, bad language, bad grammar, poor spelling, it's not really in a readable, releasable state. But I could write part of that book as a blog post or a post on LinkedIn to gain feedback from our potential readers and stakeholders on particular topics without having to write the whole thing. So that's the quality part, is, are you able to ship that thing to production? If that is true, we've met our definition of done. And I think that will be reflected in Anna's going to talk about the workshop that she's built to provide for everybody, and that's part of that story as well. But thank you for that. That's good.
Yeah, in fact, I just found this sentence from the Scrum Guide when you were talking. Developers are the people in the Scrum team that are committed to creating any aspect of a useful increment each sprint.
Usable. Yeah, that's it has to be usable. If it's not usable, we've not mitigated any risk. That's our definition of done, helps us mitigate risk. Working product, usable product. And they do use that terminology because they don't want to talk about software anymore, because there's so many more people and organizations in the world using Scrum, using it as a method for organizing around work. So they've definitely, I think they've done a pretty good job of removing all of the software focused, but it does mean there's some weird words in the Scrum Guide that you have to go, like, what the heck does that actually mean? And then it's within your context. I did Scrum training for police officers in Ghana that were using Scrum as a method for organizational change. Right? So they weren't building software. In fact, 90% of people in the room had no idea what a computer looks like. Obviously, everybody knows what a computer looks like, but we didn't have good usage of a computer with Word or any. It's not something they do on a daily basis. Everything's paper based. So the thing was, how do we change this organization? How do we iterate on making incremental improvements to the way the organization operates? Yeah, so you can use it in all sorts of places. I think we want to introduce a new market opportunity for our bakery. There is a huge opportunity to steal the market in meat snacks, meat-based pastries. But I'm pretty sure once we start having meat in our products, we're going to have some additional things on our definition of done. Okay, because serving not undercooked baguettes, while our customers might not like it, they're not likely to die. But if we serve poorly cooked meat products, that is certainly a lot riskier. Right? So maybe we need to tighten up our definition of done. So this is a new market opportunity, so we need to figure out what needs to be on our definition of done. So we're going to do a little exercise called a 1, 2, 4 all. Some of you may have participated in these in the past, but let me kill the breakout rooms first, because there's a couple of people dropped off, and then we will recreate the breakout rooms, and I will do that in just a moment. But what we're going to do, goodness me, quite a few people have dropped off. See, that's that top, that every half hours and top of the hours is when everybody disappears. So we're going to do 1 minute silently and on your own, writing down a list of additional things that need to be on our definition of done. Now we're including meat products. So what needs to be on your definition of done? You can do it on the mural, you can do it on a bit of paper, you can do it in OneNote or Word or wherever you like. But silently on your own, I'm going to put 1 minute on the timer, and then I'll start breakout rooms in pairs. So that will be 10, I think. No, it will be 5 because I can't count. I can't count, Anna. That's the problem.
If you want to me anywhere, just do it.
Dyscalculia is part of the fun. Part of the fun of being dyslexic. Add in a bit of dyscalculia and you're off to the races. It's even more fun, Peter, when you add a bit of dyspraxia in there as well.
No, I was thinking of actually, is there you're not got then?
No. So, do you know what's funny? There's like 8 seconds left. In my parents' house, it's an older house, so it has the door handles are high up. Remember in the old Victorian houses, the door handles were high up, and all of them in the house are bent. And the reason they're bent a little bit is because when I got old enough that my shoulder wouldn't go underneath the door handle, I started walking into them. And I walked into them so much that everyone in the house is bent. Part of the fun of growing up.
In Scotland.
Okay.
For anyone who's not based in the UK, the rest of us in the UK are fairly normal. It's just the Scots.
It's just the Scots. It's because we've got all the genius genes. We invented pretty much everything, Peter. That's why we've got all of these additional things. Steam engine. Can we get the steam engine?
We can carry out this fight on another occasion.
So 2 minutes in pairs to merge your lists together, get them on the mural, and add some more items, okay? Oh, well, I did do 3. Okay. So let me do 2 minutes. Oh, 2. And then we have 5 rooms, and that's a pain in the butt to merge into 2 pairs, so we're going to have a room of more. So let me do the assign participants. So that will be 5. 5 goes into 1. 5 into 1. 4. Where's Amit? 4 goes into 2. 4 goes into 2. Hold on. Yes, cancel. Somebody's... No, it's everybody's there. Where's Amit? Oh, maybe already gone. Okay. Do it again. 5 into 1. 5 into 1. 4 goes into 2. 4 into 2. And then 3 just goes into 2 again. 3 into 2. There we go. So I've got that set up. I can leave it. They've got about 40 seconds left, so they're starting to create some items. There's test control coming in. I think there's a weird post-it there. Haste testing control. That's a good idea. Utensil cleaned and disinfected. I would say that's included in kitchen clean at time of preparation. Somebody introducing some meat health standards. Find out what they are. Include them in our definition of done. Properly cooked meat products, properly cooked. I think we can just say all products properly cooked. I don't think it has to be meat products, but we'll get to that. Refrigeration. Yeah, refrigeration might become a more important thing. How do we store our meat before we cook it? Storing our meat. Oh, there we go. Let me click the assign button. Move. There we go. And they'll get 4 minutes in 4 pairs, but it's not quite 4 pairs because it's funny ass groups. We lost quite a lot of people at the 17:30. Well, 17:30 for me. That's 16:30 UTC. So it depends which time zone you're in, but that might be I'm done for the day, or it could be it's too late. I know that Andre's it's pretty late for Andre. For him, it is quite late. I think we go to midnight for Andre. So he's just before midnight. We're getting a good group of people in very different aspects. I know some folks are have an engineering background, software background. Some folks have no engineering or IT background whatsoever, and that's a good mix coming into the session. That's why I kind of picked that story of the bakery, because it's a good non-technical aspect. But as you see, some of the conversations have been trending towards phrases like technical debt, which are very, very, I guess, geeky, I guess. Yeah, a little bit. So we want to have as few purely technical conversations, but things kind of gravitate to it. There's a lot of software engineers there, but hopefully we have enough to keep everybody else happy who's not a software engineer. I'm definitely an enabler of those conversations trending to technical. Gunther Vermeulen, when I was doing my T prep for the product owner class, did kind of give me into a little bit of trouble for being a little bit too technical. But the space that I tend to work in tends to be a technical space. I tend to work with a lot of technical product owners. So product owners building products for developers, product owners building engineering products. I've worked with a few systems where they're building Flowmaster, building software that manages the flow of liquids through oil rigs, or Kongsberg Maritime building maritime simulation software. All very, very technical, detailed product domains, right? They're not really building the same level of commercial products that you would get on your phone, or just going to go to a website and buying. But it is important as a product owner to have an understanding of the technical domain within which you're working, but you do not need to be technical as a product owner. As a Scrum Master, you want to have an understanding of the technical domain within which your teams are operating, right? If you've got a bunch of teams that are building software, you probably want to know what good software looks like. You want to know what continuous delivery is and what it looks like. What are unit tests and what do they look like, right? So you can help the team. But maybe you bring somebody in to do that. Maybe you don't have to have those conversations. I just think it helps. If we're working in a software company, regardless of the job we're doing, we probably want an understanding of what software is, what it looks like, how it's created. If I was working in a bakery, I would want to understand something about how to bake. Even if I'm just selling pies, right? Somebody's going to ask, what's in the pie? Somebody's going to ask, how do I cook it? Somebody's going to ask those questions, and I should be able to answer them. Or I feel like I should be able to answer them. I tend to like to know about the products that I'm working with, the products that I'm selling, how they're created, how they work. But that's maybe just me being a geek, right? I like to check up on Mural, see how things are working, talk to their product owners, give them improvements. I work with, use Mighty Networks, so I'm diving into their documentation and figuring out how it works. How is it going to support my business? There we go. Everybody's back.
Hello.
I was talking to myself a little bit there, Anna.
Okay.
I do that quite a lot. I do that quite a lot. So I see some very interesting things on our lists. Sorry, Victoria. There's just some background noise. Or it's Anu. It's either Agu. I don't know if it's Victoria first name or Agu. Sometimes that's depends where the comma is. So we've got a few things. Cleanliness, obviously an important topic. But then there's additional things. There's some things that I had not even thought of in my wildest dreams. Cross-contamination in the kitchen. That is a good one. I do have a relative who is a celiac, right? Although that's not a meat thing, but you know, somebody's a vegan, they're going to get upset if there's meat products in the same area. If they're a celiac, they're going to be incredibly ill. She just came back from a vacation and she was so ill because other people, if you're not a celiac, you don't think about the level of contamination that is required to cause a problem. It can be tiny. So we've got meat products properly cooked. I'd put that with meat health standards followed. Cross-contamination with utensils and disinfected, right? I like that. Maybe different shelf lives applied. I think the shelf life on bread is shorter than cakes. And meat products probably sit somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure. But now we've got to talk about refrigeration. Right? Maybe our baked products, we kept them warm rather than letting them go cold. But now our meat products, we need refrigeration for the ingredients. We need refrigeration for the made products. That's a little bit more complicated. Some taste testing. That sounds like a good idea. Does taste testing apply also to our baked goods? Yeah, it does. I had a couple of things on my here's some stuff I prepared earlier in case we don't get everything. So I had a visual inspection. That would solve my circular baguette problem, wouldn't it? I mentioned circular baguettes. That's not really what we think of as baguettes. One product in each batch has been taste tested, ensuring there's an EU standard that is their title is farm to fork, right? Ensuring safety standards all the way to eating the product, and checking that meat products are cooked to the right temperature. So I think we covered most of that in the things we came up with, right? We need to add more things to our definition of done.
Martin, we were having a discussion because the definition of done should apply to all, but if we say meat product properly cooked, it does not apply to the baguettes because they don't have meat.
Yes.
I had the same concern. For this round, we only focus on bread and the baguette, and maybe for next round, when we talk about meat, we can add this one to the updated definition done, not for this round. So I agree with.
Well, maybe if we take if I take this example here, I'll make it bigger so we know which one we're talking about. There we go. The meat products properly cooked, right? If I just take the word meat off there, products properly cooked, right? Regardless of what that means to the individual products, we want all our products to be properly cooked. Have you ever had a baguette that wasn't properly cooked and it's still... So, yeah, exactly. It applies to both those products. And then instead of meet health standards followed, we can just, again, take the word meat off. Right? Health standards followed. Each product, different ingredients are going to have different health standards, and we need to meet them all, or at least I hope we're meeting them all for our bakery. So we do want to think about that as part of our definition of done, but I do agree that there may be things that are on your definition of done that don't apply equally to all products. Peter brought up a good example right at the beginning. He said documentation. Right? The amount of documentation you need for the pacemaker firmware versus the printer, right? They're going to be different. Right? The level of documentation you need, who needs the documentation. I'm sure printers have to meet ISO standards too, Peter, but they're probably not as strict and they're probably not as detailed as the pacemaker standards. Right? That's just the way it is. If you're building a plane, I hope you've got good documentation. So does that make sense on how you would think about your definition of done? Cool. So I just had a few things here. I had some example definitions of done. They're actually pulled from the APS SD courseware, the Applying Professional Scrum for Software Delivery. I'm just getting the... Actually, I should have put the logo on there, shouldn't I, Anna? Oh, they don't even have it there. Never mind. I was going to try and get it quickly. But, oh, there we go. Copy, image, paste. Yeah. So I just stole that from the APS courseware. And really it's just an expression that there can be different levels of definition of done even for similar products. Each of these products listed here are fake products, right? They're just fake products, but they have different levels of definition of done, but they're all websites, right? So it depends what your business is willing to pay for. It depends on the risk of how and where you're delivering your product. Right? There is an expression that I use that I guess some people like and some people don't. But I always say it's about risk. Low quality adds risk to your product. There is a risk to the organization. If you deliver a crap product to production, what's the risk to your brand? Right? Will your customers still come back if you deliver a crappy product? Okay, that's one. What about the risk internally to your business? Right? What's the financial risk? Not brand risk, like what you look like, but also the risk of your customers in your product. Think of Boeing and the definition of done they should have had for the 737 MAX. Right? They should have been thinking about the risk to their brand, massive risk. Nobody thinks of Boeing well at the moment. The risk to the customers, bunch of people died, right? But also, what's the risk to the people working on the product? How many of the people working on that worked on that product are going to see prison time, right? This is an extreme example, but prison time because they delivered a poor quality product and maybe didn't do the level of due diligence that people expect them to do, that the industry expects them to do. Right? So are your developers, the people working on your product, at risk? Is your users at risk? Is your company at risk? How do we mitigate those things? Those are things that need to go in your definition of done. Right? Hence why you want an organizational standard. Because it's not just the engineer's job to think about those things. The people doing the work. Right? But we don't always start with a good definition of done. This is a poster here. If you hover over it, there's a little open button in the bottom right. You don't have to click it, but it'll open a big PDF poster for, yes, we have a definition of done and it's awesome. Right? If you don't have a definition of done, create a definition of done that you can achieve, which might not equal releasable. But you have to start somewhere. And I think that's the point where, Anna, would you like to, there is a few minutes left.
Yeah.
If we all follow Anna, she can take us over to the workshop. I'm just going to follow Anna. There we go. If you should have the ability to summon, Anna. I think I made you a facilitator. I did indeed.
I cannot bring everybody to me.
I will summon them. There we go. I summoned everybody.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, well, based on what we've been talking about, it may be that in your teams you have a definition of done or you don't. And usually teams have a definition of done, but they don't follow it, or they have it somewhere in hidden and they don't use it daily. So this workshop is to embrace the definition of done. And if you click, this is a link. If you click on it, you will get into the community, and you will see the post on how to do this workshop. But basically, with one two for all, you will be able to see what you're doing, what definition of done you're having right now, even though you don't have it written down or you're not using it, but the developers and all the Scrum team has it in their mind. And also you will be able to see what things they would like to add. And yeah, that takes us to the next.
So just to point out that this particular workshop, the columns here do represent a little bit more. They're a little bit more geeky, a little bit more software orientated. So you got what do you need to do before there's code to be coded, tested, integrated, releasable, and then released. What are the things that need to be true in all of those categories so that you can build up a big picture of everything that needs to be true to ship your software. If you're not doing software, right, and you are maybe doing marketing content or videos or whatever it is you're doing, you can change those headings to whatever the stages you can think of that work within your product.
Yeah, this way, it's basically to create like a storyline for them to think on what they've been doing, so that they can identify quite good in what stages they are applying those standards. So it really helps to guide.
And don't just include your team, the Scrum team, in this conversation. Include anybody who has a say in whether your product ships to production. So that could be somebody in the security team, somebody in the operations team, somebody in the messaging team. Is our product on message, right? Whoever can block your ability to deploy to production, have them involved in this conversation.
And also, and something that comes out from doing this workshop may also be that somebody that it's not in your team should be.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like an eye opener when you do it. So once you have that, once you have all those post-its over there, then everybody involved start dragging into what they are really doing and the wish list. And there's going to be a good conversation there, because some people think that they are doing it, some people do not. And usually the people who is more has more experience, it's more critical on more heavy on what is being done, and they have a clear view on this. So this is also an eye opener. And after doing this, you can run a voting to update the definition of done. So you will see what you're doing, embrace it, and then if you see that it's possible, add something else, because sometimes you need to check if you need to continue working with that definition of done to make it more mature, or you can add more things. That's that's a tricky
There
part.
is an additional psychological trick I would definitely recommend here, and that's that instead of having this is a Boolean proposition, right? So you've got doing or wish list. Sometimes people will put it in doing when they're only kinda doing it, right? And maybe nobody argues. But if you make it a 3-state problem, we're doing it, we've kind of heard of it and are kind of doing it, and then not doing it. And we know, as the person facilitating it, that unless it's in the doing it category, it counts as no, we're not doing it. Right?
Yeah.
But it psychologically makes them feel better for being able to put things in that middle category. We're kind of doing it. You get
Yeah.
more truth.
I've seen a lot of the sticky notes in the middle of
Yeah.
both.
Yeah. People want to hedge their bets. Yeah.
Yeah. So once you have done that, you have an agreement with the team. You have what you're doing and what you're going to do. And here, this is my favorite part, because the other part, it's like, yeah, building the definition of done. But my favorite part comes here when it comes to imagine that. And then you link to the past. Imagine that we have had this definition of done in the past. What could have happened? How we could have done things better in terms of quality, communication, estimation, expectations. And there's where the team really understands how it can change their daily work. And if you link it with the Scrum events, you give them the option to make them a stand in a real scenario where they could be using that definition of done daily. And just something else, don't make a follow-up. Even though you can use this workshop once, make a follow-up. And the first planning after doing this workshop, grab this definition of done into the planning and put it on the table because they are going to understand really what it means in planning, in adding things to the screen, but also building the plan to build those things.
Yeah, when you first get a definition of done, don't expect everybody to magically remember it and follow it. You need to keep hammering back to that. When you're doing refinement, does all of these things, are we thinking about the definition of done? Have you thought about testing? Did you look at this? What about security? Do we need to do something with security in this? Keep pointing at those things until it becomes second nature for the team to know, and they own their definition of done. And that, I think, is one of the key purposes of this exercise, is because they put the items on it and they create it and they specify what they can do now versus what's on their wish list. You can then keep revisiting it either at retrospectives, and maybe you don't do the whole exercise every retrospective. You might just take, here was our wish list. Is there anything we want to try and put on our doing list, get onto our definition of done? These are things that we can't do yet. Okay, what can we do around that? What can we change? And then if you're just getting started and you don't have a definition of done or a brand new product, you could pull this workshop out at your sprint planning as well and just figure out what your definition of done is before you get started.
One thing that I found out during this workshop, I got a question from a team member asking me, okay, but where do we check that this applies? Like if we needed to have a moment, like say, okay, check, and it is not for that. It is really a team agreement. It's something to embrace, not because it's written in Confluence or whatever. We have to go through the checklist. It's something more. It's a team agreement, and we need to respect all of us that agreement. And then they started to understand what the definition of done meant.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Anna.
You're more than welcome.
So Anna has published a blow-by-blow article on the community page with how to run the workshop, as well as a link to the mural template. So it's just this part of the workshop, so you can use it with your teams, however you like. Okay. So feel free to go grab that. And I marked the post that Anna did as featured, so it should be right at the front of the community site as well.
And tell us
and give us feedback. Yes. And not just feedback. This was the first session that Anna and I have run together. I think there will probably be more because we had lots of fun at running it. So we're always interested in feedback and other topics or different types of exercises or whatever's that you would like to let us know. So please feel free to add any comments you want. Maybe there was an expectations gap between what we delivered and what you expected when you got here, and maybe we can have another session that fixes that. So please provide us with any feedback you think we need. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you very much. I'm super happy we got so many participants. That was probably Anna. Everybody's coming here to see Anna rather than me, for sure. I'm fairly positive. So I'll wrap up the